All right. Well, hello, everybody. I'm really excited to have Janelle Hardy here with us today. Janelle is unlike most folks who come and present and are experts that we bring to the Author Ever After community because Janelle is an expert in memoir writing and other things body related. And so we were talking a couple of months ago, several months ago, I guess, back in the winter time, about what an interesting experiment it would be to bring what she knows about connecting with ourselves into the world where we connect with our heroines and how we can make our heroines even more real, three-dimensional, impactful. So that's why Janelle is here today doing this workshop with us. I'm going to let Janelle do her proper introduction of herself, but I want to read something from her about page. It's one of the most impactful about pages that I have read. It's at janellehardy.com/about, but here's the one piece. She says, I think this is relevant for all of us who write about love. And now, as an adult, I love my grown daughter and flowers and the taste of rich blood red wine evoking dirt and sex and scorching fire, olives and dark chocolate. I love when people curse because they're so fired up. Raunchy pop music and happy hip hop and Gaelic fiddling music, but most of all, anything I can dance to. And retreat and quiet time and trees and the blossoming of bruises and scars. I love it all. It makes me emotional just reading that. Like, how evocative is that? So, Janelle, I want to thank you so much for coming and sharing your expertise and your heart with us about how we can be writing really impactful characters in our romance.
Thank you. Thanks for that introduction. It's funny, I keep thinking my about page is too long and that I need to pare it down, but obviously it's it's good. So hello, everyone. I'm going to dive right into this experiential presentation workshop. And because I want to give us time at the end, and typically I teach for 1.5 to 2.5 hours, not 1 hour. So this is my own existential challenge to keep myself contained. Hang on one second. Okay. So the heroine's true voice, memoir techniques for romance writers. Let me click that share button. Okay, I've enlarged it, so this should be the full screen. I'm gonna just move these boxes around a little. I'm Janelle. I'm the creator and teacher of the art of personal myth making and various other transformational memoir writing courses and courses related to healing and life story writing, including a course I'm going to tell you about at the end called Write Your Life Stories, Heal Your Past. I'm a 100% really creative person. I'm a writer, but also visual artist. I even did my master's degree in dance because I love movement and dance so much. And really importantly to my work and how you understand me as a memoir writing teacher is that I'm a somatic healer. I have 17 plus years of hands-on experience offering structural integration. The more well-known version of that is called Rolfing, which is all about working with your fascia, a certain kind of connective tissue that holds us in alignment and holds us in place and offers us flexible structure. And somatic experiencing, which is a 3-year trauma healing nervous system training program. So both of these processes are about healing through the body and sourcing your sense of aliveness through reconnection with your body. And this has everything to do with how I teach writing and personal growth and transformation. And I'm going to give you some experiential cues in this session that draw on that background. I deleted my entire professional introduction because of time, but this is what I really want to emphasize is that our lived experiences are held in our body, and most of us are socialized and come out of cultures that teach us by the time we're adults to be very disconnected from our bodies. And so we approach our art and our creative work and our efforts to get out of writer's block and resistance from a very cognitive perspective, and mostly forget about the extraordinary opportunity to tap into memory, sensation, experience, and creative flow by making our body our most trusted creative ally. So this is hands-on and productive. This is your moment if you don't already have some kind of writing implement. Or it could be your laptop, that's fine, but I'm going to always recommend pen and paper. And we're just going to dive right in. Hang on, let me back up. We're not going to dive right in. What else did I want to speak about before we dive right in? Oop. So, memoir techniques for romance writers. What I'm going to do is take you through some self-inquiry and writing prompts that ask you to source from your own lived experience. Now, I know many of you are romance writers. Some of you might also be memoir writers. Excuse me. And what I want you to do is turn inwards towards yourself for this workshop in order to have source material for your fiction, for your characters, right? So we're working at two levels. I'm not neglecting or ignoring the fact that you're writing fiction and you're writing characters that are outside of yourself. And I'm inviting you to start with yourself to excavate and open up some source material for the purposes of your romance writing, but because I am first and foremost all about supporting growth, transformation, and really great personal stories. This is also for you. The heroine's true voice. And the name of my business, The Art of Personal Myth Making. True voice, personal myth. If you think of myth as the truest story of all true stories, the deepest layer, and your true voice, that's where they meet with this work. What is the story that holds all of the archetypal, embodied, somatic realness of yourself? And then how can you, as writers, and if you have other artistic practices, those practices as well, how can you then bring forth that voice and those stories, the mythic nature that makes people pay attention to your stories, into your words and your writing? And then how are you the heroine? How are you making yourself the core of the story? Not the heroine for another gaze, but the heroine for your own experience, and then therefore your characters as well. One other small note, some of you may already be aware of the counterpart to the hero's journey, but there is also the heroine's journey as an archetypal narrative storyline. And it is more of a 4-act structure and more of an internal transformational process. The heroine's journey was developed and identified by an author named Maureen Murdoch, and it's really worth exploring and playing with as well if you're not already aware of it when you're writing female stories. Okay, so first things first, we're talking about romance, the erotic, sex. So I want to start with this statement. You are a body that knows, not just a self, but a body that knows. And as a knowing body, this is not about calming down, it's about waking up. A certain kind of nervous system dynamic that is more prevalent for women, if you think of fight, flight, and freeze responses, is the freeze response. And this is really worth considering with yourself, but also with characters. Most trauma responses for women get locked in a freeze state, which can be a very functional state. It's often the good girl archetype is a deep freeze. And so anyone, including yourself and your characters, who is in a freeze state doesn't need more calming down. What they need is a mobilization of the parasympathetic charge of the nervous system, which is related to fight and flight, because the sympathetic, because the parasympathetic is the freeze response. I'm going to try not to use too much jargon, but this is really important. Is your character operating more if they've got a history of distress or coping? We all have coping patterns that are related to fight, flight, and freeze. More out of freeze, fight, or flight. And this becomes a really fun thing to play with in terms of character development, because if you identify which of those states your character is operating more out of, then you can predict their responses, and you can also build in the transformational arc they need to go through to get free of that coping strategy. So just with the assumption that for many women, it's a functional freeze state, the work of transformation, of claiming desire, is about waking up and building the inner fire more than it is about softening and slowing down. So I want to work with 3 core themes today: desire and longing and hunger as motivating factors in a story arc in your heroine. So desire you can think of as what pulls us forward, right? Longing is what aches beneath, and hunger is what can't be silenced. Now, let's say the heroine or yourself has been in a freeze state, which is a lot about shutdown, suppression, denial, making yourself smaller. So desire in that state is going to be this charge of energy that starts to pull her out of the locked up state. Longing is an ache, but longing can sometimes drive you more into freeze, because longing can be an addictive experience. And if you're addicted to longing, you can't get what you have, because then you have to let go of the longing. So longing sometimes locks you deeper into a freeze state in order to maintain the state of longing. Hunger is this undeniable thing, even if you try to shut it down, right? And then the question becomes, what happens as you start to thaw? Or maybe your protagonist is someone who is constantly in flight, always busy, always in motion, always abandoning projects and people. Or fight, pushing back against, not allowing in, not allowing themselves to receive. What happens in each of those 3 states when there's a thawing and a softening and an opening up to the other 2 states? How does desire and longing and hunger show up differently? I'm just offering you lots of inquiry to play with your characters. So staying with this core pattern, this core feminine pattern of going from freeze to fire, I'm going to get you to take a few moments, maybe 2 minutes, to ask yourself, where do you feel hunger? What parts feel alive or numb? Often there's a paradox. We feel fire and freeze together in different parts of our body and different parts of our lives. So there might be numbness along with other experiences. What parts feel alive or numb, aching or tingling, or a different word altogether? And is there a gesture, a sound, or a word that expresses that? So I'm going to give you 2 minutes.
Can you give us an example before you give us the 2 minutes?
Hmm. Well, I'll give you an experience because everyone's like, it's going to be different for everyone. But let's say, what do you do when you feel hunger? Do you meet the hunger and feed it, or do you deny it, or do you do something else? And in that experience, what's happening in your body? If we just literally think of being hungry for food. So let's expand that outside of hungry for food and think of an erotic hunger. Maybe something you want that you have not yet gotten or given yourself. And just call that hunger into your imagination and into your body. Closing your eyes can help with this. And notice what starts to change in your body as you invite the unmet, unsatiated hunger into your awareness and into your body. Notice what starts to happen. And see if you can stay with the responses. It might be sensation, a change in your thinking or your emotional state or your energy. Whatever it is, just notice it. And when you're ready, start writing or drawing or making sound. And I'm giving you 2 minutes to explore this. And if you want to, and if you feel ready, you're welcome to share in the chat section what you're noticing. Okay, so just looking at the chat section, Day says something about the fawn state of the trauma response cycle, fight, flight, freeze, and then fawn is often referred to as tend and befriend. That's not a core trauma response. It's a secondary coping pattern. So there's more to talk about that, and it's very real, but it's not one of the 3 core responses. Okay, so Valerie shares, scary how close that hunger is to the surface when I give it the tiniest bit of attention. Yes, right? And now how juicy is that to write for yourself, your own story, but also how juicy is that to consider when you've got a heroine, a character, giving a little bit of that hunger so close to the surface to the story, right? Okay, so another, well, I guess this is prompt number 2, but anyways, another writing prompt, desire. desire in your own words. Let yourself say it. Write in the voice of your desire. Don't soften it. Don't justify it. Don't explain it. Don't do anything but write it. And see if you can include your body in these statements. So I'm going to give you about 3 minutes for this one. You're going to begin with I want, and then write it. I want, and then write it. I want. I desire. Right? And keep going. Make it like a list, but start every sentence with I want or I desire. This workshop, of course, is about romance. So I'm going to suggest you stick with romance and the erotic, but you actually don't have to tap into desire. You can go anywhere to tap into the energy of desire. And to get you, to kick you off a little, we're going to start with 2 from our body. So first, bring your attention to your toes. Wiggle your toes, move them in some way. You know, if your toes are not accessible, I don't know everyone's ability needs, but you can always swap out fingertips or face for wiggling. Wiggle and then ask that body part to express, what does it want? What do your toes want? What do they want? And write it down. Don't write my toes want, write I want. So as an example, I'm wiggling my toes and they are telling me loud and clear, I want the feeling of squishy mud moving under my toes and between my toes. Ooh, that's juicy, right? So I'll give you a moment for the first one with the toes. Okay, second one is pelvis. You can take the pelvis as a whole or your genitals. Bring your attention there. You can wiggle on your bum. You can do some Kegels, some squeezing and releasing of the pelvic floor to just wake up sensation in that area. You can do some pelvic rocking or rolling or just pivoting your upper body around from side to side. And really let your attention land in your pelvis, maybe also your genitals. And ask that area of your body what it wants. I want. You're claiming all parts of your body as yourself. I want, I want, I want, I want. And then speak from the pelvis, from the genitals. Okay, and you can keep doing that with other body parts. I'm going to give you 3 minutes. And if you have anything you want to share, what you're noticing in the chat section, go ahead. Okay, let's move on. Danica shares, I wrote 10 I wants before they started to go deep to history stuff and longing to release. Yes, that's why the prompt is I want, because we have to keep going, right? Day says, I want to be painted and bright. I want to move and stretch my limits. I want to rock back and forth. I want to relax and lengthen, expand. I want to crack and let loose. Juicy, right? Isn't it kind of exciting to read and say these want statements? Okay, let's explore the chase. So one of the dynamics in the nervous system is predator and prey. And prey, if you really identify with the prey response, you're more likely to go into a freeze state, for one, and predator is more likely to go into fight. Now, we have some fears around the predatory energy. And in sexual and romantic erotic dynamics and fantasies, there's a lot of play around pursuing and the pursuer and the pursued, which is predator and prey dynamics. And there's an expansion and a contraction, there's a back and a forth energy to this. What I want to also invite is that as humans, our nervous systems are oriented towards both states, predator and prey. And the predator energy, when it's healthy, is like the mother bear energy. It's not predatory in terms of being bad and evil. It's power, right? It's powerful. It's also about baring your teeth and your claws. It's about fighting back. It's about biting, tearing, setting limits, protection, right? So we really want to identify with both of those energies so we can embody both of those energies. And if you're thinking of yourself and you're thinking of characters, there's an extraordinary transformational arc where the character that is really identified with being prey, being chased, being pursued, being overpowered, learns how to also take, especially in erotic dynamics, to take, to dance in the interplay. And also the character that is always only the predator, what happens when they are allowed more range so that they become also taken, so that maybe it looks like predator and prey, but one layer down, actually, it's the reverse in hiding, right? You get to play so much with these dynamics when you get really clear about them, especially in the nervous system. And humans are omnivorous. Our bodies are built to eat plant matter and also animal matter. Whether you're vegetarian or vegan or not, the fact is that our nervous systems are very comfortable when they are regulated and free in embodying both roles, predator and prey. So how can we bring this to our stories and also our personal experiences, and how can we bring this into the need for change and transformation and getting unstuck, which is part of what makes a story so dramatic, right? Is this build up towards the thing that changes everything that came before. So the chase. Pursuit is power. Being pursued is also power, because to be pursued, you have to be wanted, desired, and hungered for by the pursuer, right? It's a reciprocal relationship in those energies. Pursuit and chase is primal. It's felt in the hips, the breath, the gaze. Stories about Eros thrive on these polarities of opposite sides of the energetics. And power doesn't always lie in outcomes. It lies in the sensations. Sometimes we don't even know why we're pursuing or wanting to be pursued, except that we are hungry for the sensation that arises in the act of such a thing rather than getting the result. And if that's at play, how is that going to change your story? If secretly neither party actually wants to catch and be caught, they just want to stay in the state of chasing and being chased. And what happens to change that? So embodying predator as well as prey energy is super important in our lives and in our stories. I forgot what's coming next, so I don't know if I need to talk more. Okay. Okay, so another prompt. The chase and the question, who exactly is hunting who? Dynamics of approach and retreat, catching and letting yourself be caught, also possibly not being successful in chasing and trying to catch, and what happens then. So I'm gonna give you two very quick scenes. These are very brief writing prompts. I want you to just consider, you're gonna return to this later. 2 minutes for the first one and 2 minutes for the next one. The first one is when you were pursued, a scene, right from the eyes, legs, genitals, or whatever other body part, right from body parts. The second one is when you were pursued. And the question for both prompts is, where does your power live in each role? So let's start with the first 2-minute prompt. A scene about when you were pursued. Try to write from your eyes, legs, and genitals. And if it needs to be point form, that's fine. So 2 minutes starting now. Okay, second prompt. Write a quick scene about when you were pursued. Right from your ears, breath, neck, and genitals. Where does your power live in each role? So, I mean, there's always a choice point, especially when you're writing about being pursued, when you're more the prey. Do you want to write about a hard story right now? Or do you want to write about a juicier, sexier, ooh, I'm being chased and I like it and I'm inciting it, right? So there's your choice point. You can go in a more sparkly direction or a tougher direction, and neither is wrong, but it's useful to ask yourself where you want to take yourself with these prompts and then choose accordingly. So when you were pursued, a quick scene, and where does your power live in that role? 2 minutes. I'm gonna skip ahead and see what else I have planned. Okay, we're good, I think. Go back. Doot. All right, so time is up for this second scene. If you want to share any little noticings, go in the chat section, go for it. I want to get in 2 more explorations before we move to a discussion. So the question of erotic hunger. What are you really starving for? What are you really hungry for? Hunger is not shameful, it's a compass. And if we take that straight into the erotic, which is an embodiment of aliveness, Eros is not just about sex and sexuality, but it's about how alive can we be? Can we become? How much are we able to allow the flow of life to move through us and express itself? And that's Eros. And it comes through in sex, in sexuality, in sensuality, in creativity, in the way that we relate and connect with others, or shut down and close up and suppress and tamp down. So, what are you really starving for when you chase a kiss, when you chase attention, when you chase touch? What is it you're after? Is it simply the kiss, attention, touch? There's usually more going on, and this is where it gets really interesting. Is it sovereignty? Is it power? What happens when you get it? When you seek to be pursued, chased, desired, caught? What are you really after? What does the almost unbearable moment just before getting it feel like? That's worth writing about. And then what happens when you do get it? What happens? And after, how does your body tell you that something's changed, that you've got it? How does your whole self, your psyche, respond? So, another prompt. The true hunger. Again, let your body speak. If you ever work with me, you know I will just never shut up about this. What is your body noticing? How is your body speaking? So, thinking about romance and the erotic, write a monologue from your body. Begin with something like, what I'm really starving for is. And then describe that somatic embodied experience. Let it be ugly and beautiful. Let it be feral and wild. Let it be tender and hard. Let it hold all the paradoxes that are inherent in a hunger that is not yet met. So again, you can choose a body part to start with if you want, or if you already know what I'm really starving for. Ask your body to speak through your pen, through your fingers. What I'm really starving for is, and 2 minutes for this one. Let me skip ahead and see what's going on. Okay. Oop. So again, these are brief prompts. There's a lot of power to short, compressed writing bursts, just as much as to longer writing prompts. And you've got these story seeds. So just before we move on to the close of this workshop, I really want to ask and hear from you in the chat section, what moved in you from what I took you through? What surprised you? Maybe what part of your body woke up? And or is there a word that encapsulates a truth or the truth that you touched today? One or all of those questions I would love to hear about. Danica, I'm so stuck in my head. Yeah, that's my specialty, helping writers get out of their heads. But yeah, it's not surprising, given the societies and cultures most of us grow up in. Okay. So today you explored how tapping into personal stories supports your romance stories and character development. You started 3 powerful story vignettes, tapped into erotic aliveness as an embodied force, not just a plot device. And you felt your heroine, yourself, as a living body, not as a trope. So this is just the beginning of the kind of work that I do. And in my memoir writing course, we go deeper into story, body, myth, and self. And I have a little invitation for you to sign up for, with a lovely discount, my self-directed memoir writing course, which includes somatic embodied transformational elements, called Write Your Life Stories, Heal Your Past. And so if you're watching the recording, you can click through using this QR code, and until June 17th of 2025, you have a coupon code ROMANCE that gets you $100 off of the $300 tuition fee. So it's only $200 US. Write Your Life Story, Heal Your Past is a self-paced, on-demand introductory memoir writing course to help you heal while writing your difficult stories so you can craft a compelling memoir without getting overwhelmed. I will add, because you are all romance writers and fiction writers, I get a lot of students that do both memoir and fiction, or they're curious about one or the other. And my fiction writers love my work because it just gives so much material to work with for their fiction, as well as supporting memoir and personal transformation. In my course, you learn about the difference between memoir, autobiography, nonfiction, and life story writing, including a show and tell of different writing forms. You learn how to move through fear, resistance, and writer's block from a nervous system somatic healing perspective. Techniques for outlining your memoir, including timelines and pattern spotting, the connection between healing, memoir writing, and your nervous system, which I introduced you to a little bit of today, with lots of gentle self-healing somatic techniques. You'll explore how to structure your stories, choosing a form that works for your story. Different stories ask for different forms, in my experience, and tips to write, revise, and plan your memoir. Some of this might already be familiar to you as writerly writers. And then how to make decisions about sharing your stories, with guidance to help you decide on the if, when, and how you'll share your stories, especially ones that involve other people. One of my students, Molly Pennington, who's a professional writer and editor and astrologer, says, take this course. Your writing practice will ignite. So, and I'll drop the link in the chat section. And that takes us to, enough time for Q&A inside of the hour time frame.
That's a
Better at the hour-long thing.
Thank you. Yeah, I noticed there was one question. I'm still very much in an introspective state right now, so sorry.
No worries. We're not in a rush either.
Not going to be in a very articulate place. So Deus did ask for some healthy examples of prey energy and predator. Because the healthy examples of predator were really helpful.
Yeah, one moment. Okay, so the healthy examples of predator energy that I shared are energy where the predator isn't necessarily hunting, but using that charge. But even when a true predator in the natural world is hunting, they're typically hunting for purpose, to get food, right? So prey energy, we're really familiar with prey energy as the being preyed upon moment of being overpowered, assaulted, freezing, and shutting down. And actually, the freeze and shutdown is a healthy trauma response where that's the only option to try to stay alive. So I'm not saying that that's not healthy. But if you think about animals of prey, healthy examples of that energy in its aliveness is grazing, is ruminating in the sense of a cow chewing its cud and sending it back and forth between its four stomachs, right? If you think of that energy of slow and steady digestion, slow and steady consumption, it's very different from how predators get their food and eat it, which is in big bursts and big moments of gorging, because their food is always mobile, whereas prey that are eating grass or plants anyways. The plants aren't running away. So there's a quality in the energy of prey that is this beautiful pacing that we can draw on, right? The counterbalance with predatory energy is this this intense focus, this amazing ability to be patient and focused and go for what you want. And the prey energy is a wide, diffused focus because they're grazing, they eat at a slower pace. They also have to keep their awareness open to all of their surroundings without being hypervigilant, to stay safe, to have part of themselves always on the lookout for predators. Prey are typically more social. They're more in groups. They're more they have more systems of looking out. Not always, but if we're thinking of what are the beautiful qualities of prey? Relational and social. Looking out for and having warning systems for one another, even across species, like how a forest goes silent when the apex predator enters it, because all the animals know all the other prey animals' signs. And predator can also be prey, depending where they are in the hierarchy, right? Other healthy examples of prey, and you can add into the chat section too. I don't need to come up with all these examples, but um, yeah. What else? Yeah, pacing, I would say.
Yeah.
Very sweet kind of pacing.
I don't know what I was expecting, honestly. Like, I don't know where I was expecting to go, but putting that framing on the two characters I'm working with right now feels like it is going to enrich those interactions so much, just having that kind of umbrella idea. And I'm looking at Valerie, who I know is writing some like literal predator prey kind of um, characters in a story, and I'm just imagining how that can look. Anyway, anyone else have questions? You can come off mute. You can leave your camera off if you want, but come off mute and just.
Yeah, I'm really curious what you got out of this personally, as well as insight into how to work with your characters. This was fun for me because I haven't done a workshop like this, so I'm just playing with ideas.
I I'm hoping someone will come on mute or put your question in the chat. Um, Coming from like my background of social justice, all the work I did in that, this also really resonates with me because it speaks to putting purpose in our stories, like really layering in purposeful interactions and character development and so on. So yeah. Deus, you're up.
Yeah, one thing that I really noticed is there's been a few times where I really tried to embody my characters and put myself in their state of mind. And this has just given me a lot of different entry points for when I try to put myself in that moment. Should I be thinking about their toes or their ears? And what is it to pin in to get deeper into who they are rather than just, you know, trying to feel like, okay, I'm in this character, think like the character, think about the character things. Now I can have some new entry points, which is really interesting.
Yeah, and especially if you think about what's their primary trauma response. You're not going to have to figure out how they're going to respond and what their motivations are in a lot of situations, because you'll know, oh, if this person's always in freeze, then this is how they're going to respond. And maybe they're working hard and fighting against it. And then there's this extra inner layer of conflict that you can add to the story, or vice versa. Someone who's I mean, sometimes I see in stories too, the sort of a bit of a trope of the person trying to change a bad guy pattern or a predatory pattern. But how can we make it more nuanced and interesting? Like, go deeper than skating on the surface. What was the consequence for someone who's always in fight of getting soft? And therefore, is there a tremendous fear related to the desire around softening and fighting less? And how does that inner dynamic play into the story, rather than just, oh, I'm tormented, but no more depth than that?
Thank you.
Catherine shares, I realize I have quite a bit of work to do on myself because I can transpose all of these concepts to the physical of my characters, but had a really hard time doing it for myself. Yeah, interesting. And Barbara shares, and how to keep the blessings of these roles while minimizing the banes. Yeah, because where our attention habitually goes is going to be reflected in our storytelling as well. So the question as writers and storytellers is, do I habitually go to the badness and the darkness, or alternately, too much light and bright? And what happens if I try to move between, if I work with where my attention goes and what I focus on, how does that change my storytelling and my writing? Because it will. And the more we bring consciousness to these inner patterns of ourselves, the more freedom we have to make choices in our creative work as well as our personal lives, rather than being like ruled by patterns.
Yeah. Dea says all the framing of these were positives rather than labeling one as bad, which is refreshing. And also, I guess, I don't know, when you say that, Dea, it makes me think also it gives me a better understanding of dark romance as well, somehow. Like the because we know dark romance authors who have got huge hearts and are doing good work by writing dark, right? Like there's good lessons in it. Um, I can't thank you. Oh,
I'll add, often what we call dark is a desire for intense sensation. And if you think of it that way, everything changes, right?
right. Yeah. And I wonder, I know we are at time, but now my thought is rom-com is a different kind of sensation, but laughter is another one of those
Yeah.
sensations that we desire as well. Right. Um, Janelle, this was so eye-opening. Wasn't quite toe curling, but it was very impactful. I have a feeling I'm going to be having a very introspective evening. Yeah, that's where I'm standing right now. Thank you so much, everybody who came live. Thank you for showing up live and for engaging as you have. Any last words, Janelle?
No, it was fun. I love doing this kind of stuff. So,
All right. Well, happy writing, everyone. Impactful writing, and we'll see you between the covers. I've never said that before. Okay, I'll say that now. Bye.